Well, Whitecap all started really before we ever gave any thought to forming our own business. I was on a vessel in the North Sea, and we were working on this huge robot that was sitting on the seafloor, and a storm came up and it got detached from his lift hook. And so the ROV pilot needed to actually strap just the hook from the crane into the manipulator of the ROV. And one of the things that really struck me was the lack of depth perception. It was very difficult looking through that single lens, that single display, to see how far away the object was. And I thought to myself, could I make a tool or device or system or technology that could help pilots see things in 3 dimensions so they wouldn't have this lack of depth perception? Stereo vision is when you take 2 cameras and mount them side by side in exactly the same way that we veil of 2 eyes to see depth. Closer objects will shift more from side to side if you blink one eye and the other. And it's that shift that allows your brain to understand how far away an object is. And similarly, if you use cameras and send it to a computer, the computer can also look for those same kind of shifts between matching features in the left and the right image. And as a result, it can compute the depth to all the features in the scene and instantaneously have a 3-dimensional awareness of what you're looking at. ROV pilots, for most of history, they've had to content themselves with single camera view, so no depth perception whatsoever. And with ROV 3D, by augmenting that robot with one additional camera, we can actually provide instantaneous 3-dimensional information to those pilots so they can have better awareness of how they're performing their inspections. They have faster decision-making capabilities, and also you get instantaneous ability to make measurements, and then that informs any in-field decision-making that the people on the vessel may want to make. So the way ROV 3D constructs its 3D imagery, its 3D models, is by taking a feed from 2 cameras, and as each frame of video comes in, we perform that triangulation step where you can actually calculate the depth or the distance from the camera to every little piece in the scene. And that's like an instantaneous 3-dimensional snapshot. Because the ROV is moving through space, it moves to a slightly different vantage point. We can basically tile and build up a 3-dimensional model with time as the pilot paints in the structure of interest. So in terms of underwater hardware, what we really need for the most part is almost any 2 cameras, but they do have to have similar imaging capabilities. That doesn't mean that we can't avail of better capabilities when the cameras have them. The better input you have, the better outputs you can produce. And when we partner with groups like Subsea Control, who have the Rayfin cameras, those are manufacturing and engineering marvels. And we're able to avail of all of that to produce even better model results, higher data quality, better outputs for the customers. With 3D scanning being as easy as video, suddenly you're living in a world where you're not constrained by the flight path of an operator that was hundreds of kilometers away 2 months ago. You can refly that virtually in the comfort of your own office by spinning around a fully phototexture 3-dimensional model. You can make the assessments, make measurements, look at any aspect you need to do your work. And that idea of removing frustrations is probably one of the biggest drivers for what we do. So our team at Whitecap Scientific are motivated by helping in the blue-green economy and environment in 3 ways. The first is probably the most obvious, which is we're a tool to help people know more about their subsea assets, and that allows them to make sure that they're kept safe. We also provide them with immediate, actionable information while their vessels are offshore. We make it easier for them to get that type of information, so they don't have to plan a special, very environmentally damaging vessel trip out to get the information. They could actually piggyback on other existing operations. Not only that, but the data itself, because it's so much more insightful, they can glean more information from each trip so that fewer trips may be required for this kind of information. And this also leads to environmental savings. The team at Whitecap Scientific is made up of a few very different roles. We actually wear a lot of different hats. Sure, they may have some backgrounds in computer vision, in engineering, and programming, and business, but what we really need are people who can sort of synthesize insight across lines. And you can only have and foresee the unexpected when you have very different, diverse thoughts and people working together to drive that creativity. What skills do they bring to the table when they show up, and are they ready to keep an open mind and maybe explore new solutions that would not be available if they were pegged in some simple label. Partnerships, I believe, are fundamental to any successful business. Newfoundland in particular has a great culture for collaboration. We learn from each other, we support each other. We really believe that together we can be stronger. It's through that positive collaborative culture that companies like ours in Newfoundland can compete on the world stage.